As you learn about the narcissistic pattern, it's also wise to reflect on the much healthier alternatives. Now, below you're going to find a link to my new extensive course called Ready, Set, Connect. It addresses both the mindset and the skills involved in gratifying relationships, and I hope you'll find it to be quite therapeutic. One of the positive byproducts of me doing my work as a therapist is when I would talk with individuals over a period of time about making adjustments and getting away from strongly toxic individuals, that I would help them understand that we can put into play new patterns and ways of thinking and responding to various circumstances. And one of the things that would be very common as I would talk to these individuals is they would say, until I got away from the toxicity, I didn't really realize how many different kinds of unhealthy patterns that I had been in. One of the things that I want to talk with you about is as you try to learn to grow away from the toxic trauma bonds that's created between you and that narcissistic person or system. There are patterns, in fact, that you can look back upon and realize were red flags extraordinaire, and it becomes your delight. I hope that as you're able to move away from them to decide, well, I'm going into a different direction. Let's keep in mind that narcissists, with their need to be in control and their invalidation of you, their own selfishness, and their attitudes of superiority, what they'll do is they'll diminish you and try to suck all of the goodness out of you to where you just feel like you're a shell of the person. So what I want to do is I want to walk you through 8 very common signs that we see with individuals who have been inside that trauma bond with a narcissist. If you still see some of these signals on the inside of you, it implies there's work for you to do, but just like these individuals I worked with in my counseling office, it can be done. For example, number 1, a sign that you are still under the trauma bond is that you can have a tendency, even with well-intended people, to quickly fall into argumentative patterns. And by that I mean there's a certain kind of psychological wincing. For example, somebody may say something like, well, I don't really agree with this, or I'm not really sure I would have done it this way. And they may be very well-intended. In your mind, you can think, oh, I have been so invalidated before, and you just kind of have this wincing kind of reaction, and you can start arguing a little bit more than would be necessary. And the other person may be saying, no, I'm just trying to express a preference. But when you've been in a bond of a negative sort with a toxic person, you just think, well, as soon as a difference is described, here comes the arguing. And so you're already ready and primed, and you're about to go after it. That's not necessary. Not every individual thinks in the way that the narcissist thinks. A second sign that you can still be stuck in some of the trauma bonds with that narcissist is that you may have difficulty at times articulating your feelings very clearly. There are times when you may want to express how you feel or what you think, and you just kind of fumble for the right words. One of the common things that happens when you're with that narcissistic person is you kind of have this realization, well, when I say something, that person's going to interrupt or talk over me, or they're going to tell me that I'm stupid. And so when you're away from that person with other individuals, it might be that you carry that same thinking. Well, I don't even know how to explain myself, because sure enough, something is going to be spoken about me of an invalidating way. But again, it doesn't necessarily have to be. You're carrying that narcissist habit on the inside of you, when in fact, no, we need to come up with something different from that. A third indicator that you might still be inside some of the toxic patterns from the narcissistic bonding is that sometimes you can be a little bit too coy, or evasive in the way that you share yourself with other individuals. In other words, you may be a little too cautious in the way that you disclose who you are. And you can see that that's part of your sense of self-protection that has been building up perhaps over years or even decades. It may be that you think, I don't know if I want anybody to know about me, and so you've become too secretive. Or you just may even go to the point of being dishonest, and you say things about yourself to make yourself look good, when in fact they may not actually be true. When you're with people that have the narcissistic bent, being open and being just plain spoken has its price to pay, and so sometimes you carry the habits with you down the road. A fourth indicator that you might still be inside some of those old habits is that you may completely collapse when in fact another person does say something negative or perhaps even insulting about you. And it may be that someone beyond just that narcissistic person may just say something like, well, I just think what you're saying is ridiculous. And it triggers you. It may be a family member who's saying that. It may be someone at work or in a social situation. And sure enough, they may be inappropriate. But instead of being able to walk away from it thinking, well, that's your opinion, you can be that way, sometimes you kind of have this thought on the inside that says, oh, it's happening again. I have been so criticized and I've been worn down that whenever it does happen and you don't like it, your thinking is, I can't deal with this. When in fact, actually, you can learn to deal with it, but because you've been on the receiving end of narcissistic critical barrage, sometimes you just think, this is more than I can manage. A fifth indicator that toxicity may still reside inside of you. You may be annoyed by routine differences between yourself and other individuals. For example, it may be that you're working on a project, or you're trying to come up with social plans, or you're discussing opinions, and the other individual it lets it be known, well, I don't really think the same as you, or you have this priority, but that's not really a priority I have. And in your mind, you can be thinking, oh, this means rejection now. When in fact, no, we just have routine differences, and we need to put our minds together and figure out how we're going to resolve that. But you see, with narcissists, and particularly when you're bonded with them, that kind of discussion doesn't happen. And so you carry the presumption with you, even if the differences with that new person in front of you are in fact resolvable. A pessimism may have settled on the inside of your way of thinking. A sixth indicator that you can still be bonded in a toxic way with that old narcissist is that you may just kind of go into a grousing mode with people that you're around. In other words, it doesn't take much for you to say, oh, let me tell you about this person that I used to work with, and how awful that person was, or my ex, or this family member, and you're a little too willing to go into the complaint mode. And sometimes you can hold on to what we might refer to as a woe is me kind of thinking, when in fact it's like, at some point you need to let it go. And it's not wrong for you to share some of your historical experiences with other individuals, but you need to be careful that you don't overdo it, particularly with people that are not really on your inner circle. A seventh indicator can be that you can be extreme in one direction or another with respect to the notion of appeasement. Sometimes you can be in a mind where you're constantly laying down your preferences, trying to people please and appease other individuals, that you just keep doing that way too much. Or it could be that you could go to the other extreme where it's like, you know what, been there, done that, I'm not ever going to do that again. And you wind up becoming too defiant towards the notion that we're supposed to share, we're supposed to give certain things up as we try to engage with other individuals, and you can have a sense of pessimism that can go that way. So the whole notion of laying down your own preferences can generate patterns that are in one direction or another. And then finally, an eighth indicator that you're still stuck in some of that bondedness is that you can have a general pessimism about life. I've known so many individuals who have in fact been with very, very difficult people. As you talk to them, you realize that they have a cynicism. It's very easy for them to go into dark comments. And then when you begin asking, well, when did you have those really bad relationships? It may have been 10 years ago, and they're still carrying some of that. That implies that you're still bonded psychologically to that toxic person, even though they may not even be in your life anymore. The key thing for you to remember is when you're with that narcissist, one of their primary coping strategies for themselves is to elevate themselves by diminishing you. And so you've been so programmed in your way of thinking with narcissistic people that says you're no good, you don't measure up, you're not desirable, that kind of thinking can just have an echo effect, if you will, down the road. But let's keep in mind that it is possible for you to make adjustments so that kind of thinking doesn't remain permanently entrenched. Let's keep in mind that as you get away from individuals who want to bond in an unhealthy way, that part of the moving away is not just physically removing yourself, but mentally reminding yourself, I don't have to keep filtering who I am through that person in front of me. Let them be what they are, but then you can still have your own notions about who you're going to be without thinking, is this going to trigger something? Are you going to get mad? Or do you have bad intentions? You can learn to have a sense of your own personal initiative. Likewise, you'll need to remind yourself that you need to know what to do with judgments that people have about you. The narcissist gives you lots of judgments, and you don't really come out on the good end of that. When other individuals are judgmental, maybe you'll need to remind yourself that tells me a whole lot more about them than it does about me, and you don't have to get sucked into whatever judgments they may have. I'm hoping you can eventually get to the point of saying, I'm going to go ahead and be comfortable with who I am, and if others can go along with that, that's great. If not, then I'm going to move forward anyway. And then also, let's remember, as you get away from strongly narcissistic people, they don't represent all humanity. There is still good in this world. And there are some people that have good intentions or skills that can blend well with you. And so don't allow your pessimism to so run away with you that you forget something like that. You're capable, you can have initiative, and you can come up with your notions of what healthy living are. And when you stay in that kind of groove, that's when you know that you're no longer bonded to the toxicity that the narcissist brings, but that you're committed to you being your best version of who you can be. So I hope that this gives you some good food for thought about how you can make adjustments. There is life after toxic people, and I'm hoping that you can commit yourself to going into that positive and more healthy kind of direction. If you've not already hit that subscribe button, I would encourage you to do so. We're going to keep more videos coming toward you. Sometimes there's a need as you're trying to get away from the old influences. Sometimes you need a therapist that can help you sift that out. You're probably aware that I've been sponsored by the people at BetterHelp.com for quite some time now, and the reason I've allowed that sponsorship to be there is because I'm a therapist, and I believe in that. And so there's a whole team of licensed professional therapists that you could choose from. Please, if the need is there, the online resource has become very popular and it's very effective. There's a link below that will take you to our link there with BetterHelp, and I hope that you can get the help that you would deserve. Now, in addition, I put together courses. And these courses are very extensive. I put a lot of work into them. Each course has at least 25 videos with written documentation and guided questions taking you in different directions. We have Ready, Set, Connect about how to have healthy connections, which will be so pertinent to what we're talking about. This is me about establishing your boundaries. And then also we have Free to Be, Finding Yourself Despite the Controllers. We have my webinars that I presented. We have many articles in my website, as well as access to my podcast and my books. So plenty of resources. I'm hoping that you can develop a sense of optimism. Even though you've been exposed negatively to toxic individuals, it is possible for you to say, I can do better, and I'm going to do better. And in doing so, I'm hoping that you're going to be dedicated to your own personal growth, because in the end, you can expect to have more of a sense of steadiness. And I truly hope that you're able to find more and more of a consistency of personal peace.